Imagine a lightweight infantry rifle straight out of sci-fi. In 2003, U.S. Army testers saw it, the Heckler & Koch XM8. In one dramatic test, it fired over 15,000 rounds without a single jam, a feat even veteran officers called truly remarkable. For a moment, the XM8 looked like the Army's rifle of tomorrow. But this futuristic promise would soon collide with harsh realities. The XM8's roots go back a decade. In the late 1990s, the Army launched the Objective Individual Combat Weapon (OICW) program to leap ahead of the aging M16, M4 rifles. The OICW's goal was a single weapon combining a rifle with a smart grenade launcher. But its twin-barreled prototype, the XM29, turned out 18 pounds, too heavy for a soldier. By the early 2000s, designers decided to split the project. Its rifle component would become the separate XM8, and the grenade launcher would evolve on its own. The Army's vision for XM8 was ambitious. They wanted a weapon cheaper, lighter, and more effective than the M16 M4. Heckler & Koch's XM8 was built from the ground up as a modular system. By swapping barrels, stocks, and magazines, it could serve many roles, from a short personal defense carbine to a rifle equipped with a bipod and drum for sustained fire. It even carried a built-in optical sight and infrared aiming module, consolidating many functions into one package. The entire body was polymer, replacing heavy metal parts. In testing, XM8 prototypes began arriving late 2003 as the Army's new contender. Heckler & Koch showcased 4 XM8 versions. The standard carbine had a 12.5-inch barrel and weighed about 6.4 pounds unloaded, notably lighter than a comparably equipped M4 at 8.85 pounds. A compact carbine/PDW model used a 9-inch barrel for vehicle crews and pilots. A sharpshooter/DMR variant carried a 20-inch heavy barrel with an integrated bipod and scope. And an automatic rifle version used that same 20-inch barrel, plus an attached 100-round drum magazine for sustained fire. All variants shared the same receiver and fully ambidextrous controls, meaning left or right-handed soldiers could operate them identically. Different barrel and magazine swaps allowed quick roll changes on the battlefield. By late 2003, the Army had taken delivery of 30 XM8 prototypes for evaluation. Testing started at Aberdeen Proving Ground with high hopes. In winter trials, a veteran sharpshooter who hadn't shot in years picked up the XM8 and from a standing position at 300 meters hit the target with every shot. Army officials were optimistic. Program manager Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Clark said he was very excited about how the weapon has performed. Even H&K's chief called the results truly remarkable. For a moment, confidence was high that XM8 could indeed replace M4/M16. Engineers then put the XM8 through punishing stress tests. In dust, mud, and extreme heat, it ran flawlessly. Thanks to its sealed gas piston action and cold-forged barrel, one rifle fired over 15,000 rounds without cleaning. It would go 20,000 rounds between maintenance without a problem. Clark even quipped that the XM8 works better in a desert environment than any prior rifle. The Army literally dunked prototypes in water to ensure every part stayed alive under combat conditions. The XM8's reliability seemed legendary. But early tests also exposed flaws. Soldiers reported battery life too short for the XM8's powered sight and laser. and the lightweight polymer handguard would heat up or even melt under long strings of fire. Designers raced to toughen the plastic and improve cooling. Weight began creeping up. What was supposed to be a 5.7-pound carbine prototype swelled to 6.2 to 7.5 pounds as more hardware was added. Each edition, sturdier rails, better battery, trimmed away the XM8's intended weight advantage. The biggest hurdles turned out to be political. In 2004, Congress refused $26 million to field 7,000 XM8s, citing budget pressures and ongoing wars. Foreign and rival firms pressed Congress, saying XM8's development strayed from the original competition rules. U.S. makers, notably Colt, maker of the M4/M16, argued for a new contest. Legally, the Army was supposed to give preference to American companies. Under this pressure, the XM8 program was effectively put on hold by late 2004. A weapon with so much promise was now caught in bureaucracy. By 2005, the Army reset the rules. It issued a fresh request for proposals for the OICW Increment 1 family. Basically a complete infantry weapons suite modeled on XM8's goals. But the new requirements were tougher. The family had to include a squad automatic weapon, or SAW, capable of high sustained fire and quick barrel swaps, features the XM8's standard design didn't natively have. In practice, this meant XM8 would have to compete against other designs, Steyer's AUG, FN's SCAR, etc. Meanwhile, the XM8's underbarrel grenade launcher project was spun off. Funding went instead to the standalone XM320 40mm launcher, which could attach to any M16 M4. The XM320 ultimately replaced the older M203 grenade system, even though it ended up heavier. In short, the battlefield had changed around XM8. Then, in late 2005, everything stopped. On July 19, 2005, the Army put the Increment 1 competition on hold amid restructuring as a joint program. 3 months later, on October 31, 2005, it officially canceled OICW Increment I. In Pentagon parlance, the reason given was that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan demanded a re-evaluation of priorities for small arms. In plain terms, the XM8 had no clear path forward. The rifle program was effectively dead. Official reviews later summed up XM8's fate bluntly. In the Army's own words, the XM8 did not offer significant enough improvements over the M4. In dust and extreme tests, it had actually outperformed the M4, with far fewer stoppages. But politics and cost mattered more. The U.S. Marines quietly moved on. They adopted a piston-operated version of the AR called the HK416 in 2006, and later renamed it the M27AR, rather than wait for XM8. Special Forces tried other entries, FN's SCAR, but ultimately saw no game-changing advantage. With all contenders running neck and neck, the Army simply stuck with the M4 and waited for new technology. The story didn't end completely at home. Heckler & Koch continued developing the XM8 for export. By 2010, Malaysia's elite special forces, the Royal Malaysian Navy's Pascal, had fielded a version of the XM8. International units found the modular 5.56mm rifle attractive, especially since HK had invested in a U.S. factory to build them. Moreover, the XM8's legacy lived on in spin-offs. The XM320 40mm grenade launcher, an underbarrel spin-out, became the M320 used on M16 and M4s worldwide. Even the concept of quick-change barrels and modular stocks in later rifles traces back to XM8 thinking. The rifle that almost was had become a footnote in history, but not a total failure. Today, historians see the XM8 as both visionary and cautionary. It introduced innovations, polymer construction, integrated optics, multi-role modularity that have become standard on 21st century rifles. At the same time, it shows how even a superior design can fail without funding and consensus. The XM8 program was shut down over a decade before the Army found a true successor to the M16, the recent next-generation squad weapon. Some wonder, had XM8 been fully funded and matured, would it have changed U.S. infantry tactics? We may never know. What remains certain is that the XM8 story is a dramatic chapter in weapons history, a glimpse of a rifle of the future that almost became reality, and a lesson in how history is shaped as much by politics as by technology.